Let's take a break. Coffee break tayo. Wala tayong cafecito.
Welcome to another coffee break where we're able to learn, discuss, and discover various topics. So I'm glad you're able to join me on your coffee break today. So grab yourself a hot cup of coffee and have a seat. Today's topic, we'll be looking at evaluation. And evaluation offers ways to determine whether an initiative, a project, an event, an activity has been worthwhile in terms of its delivery and its intended and expected outcome. But just understand that good evaluation can also answer other important questions. But before we get started, it's important that we understand the purpose of evaluation, especially when it comes to our programming, your programming with your organization. So the purpose of evaluation, again, is to evaluate programs and determine whether or not they fulfill a number of functions. Right? So the purpose of evaluation, again, is evaluating programs to see or to determine whether they fulfill a number of functions. And those functions are, number one, measuring the program's outcomes and impact. Did the program achieve its stated objectives, how they were written out in the grant, in the plan? Did it reach its intended audience? Was the size of the outcome as expected? Did the program have unexpected or unintended consequences? Are the outcomes consistent with those to similar programs that you're aware of? Another function would be to inform future program planning and design. It's very important to listen and interpret your data, so that you're informing future programming. So what are the strengths and weaknesses of the approach that you used? Did you have any implementation problems that came up? Is your measurement criteria appropriate and adequate, right? Are the tools that you use to measure and gather data what you need, or do you need to change that up? Are there confounding influences affecting your outcomes? So you might have had other interventions that have, that you've used to address the same issue or target group. Have there been any new ideas that have come up and tested? Right, so those are the things that are informing future program planning and design. Another function would be is to provide important internal lessons for those conducting the programs, those doing the groundwork. As an example, your evaluations can offer feedback on whether the spending of funds and human resources are needed for that particular program, and are they justifiable? Right? Were your funds used properly? What was your return on the investment, right? What did you get in return for spending X amount of dollars? So, that's what we're learning from evaluations. You're also ensuring that there's transparency, that there's accountability with your process, especially when it's outside funding that you're using on a particular activity, an initiative, an advocacy effort, whatever that might be. Evaluations help provide justification for that particular project, that particular activity, and they can also be used as a form to engage your stakeholders. It's helping to gain buy-in from your local community members, your local authorities, and your target audience, whoever that might be. And you're asking the question, if these are suitable systems that you've put in place to ensure that there is sound financial reporting and monitoring, things of that nature, right? And have lessons been taken on board for future initiatives? What have you learned as a result, and how are you going to apply them in the future? Right? So Another function would probably be, or would be, providing, would provide you with broader lessons about your practice or good practice to ensure that your programs are effective. And so, the questions that you're asking yourself would be, what lessons can be learned from this approach? Are there lessons about policy? Are there lessons about advocacy? Are there lessons about programming? Do the results support the existing evidence? When you've compiled the data, and in asking those questions in the evaluation process, you're going to ask your organization or yourself, has this intervention worked? If so, how well has it worked? Can the design and performance be improved? Right? Is the spending of this money and implementing this program or activity justifiable? Have lessons been taken or learned and used for future programming? And can this intervention contribute to good practice? And eventually, that's what you want to learn from the evaluation. And understanding that there are different types of evaluation, and they mostly fall into one of three categories, right? So you have process-based evaluation, outcome-based evaluation, or impact-based evaluation. And impact-based evaluation is the choice for most, and it's because for several factors, and it's because of the availability of resources, or whether the evaluation is needed for internal or external purposes. And process-based evaluations are useful in assessing how interventions are being implemented or whether they're producing the necessary measurements. Outcome-based and impact-based evaluations are simply best for tracking the results of interventions, while the process assessment is likely to be useful internally, whereas the focus on the outcome and impact can have and help you justify the interventions both internally and externally. Whichever evaluation model you use, data needs to be collected in a very systemic manner, and that data may be what's considered quantitative, right? It's very descriptive and subjective. For instance, and it's just as simple as counting the number of participants, counting the number of persons involved in a particular deleterious activity, the percentage of persons involved in health disparities, risk scenarios, whatever that might be, right? Quantitative. Qualitative is another one of those measures that are very measurable and definable in absolute numerical terms when it comes to recording subjective views and whether a program has changed perceptions, right? So qualitative, the quality, quantity is the amount, but it can be very descriptive and subjective. If you're writing a report on a grant and it asks you how many youth between the ages of 14 to 24 did you serve during the 2021 fiscal year. I mean, a lot of times it's very subjective, and it can be a very specific number, but again, it's descriptive and suggestive. And just understand the successful evaluations blend both quantitative and qualitative data collection, since there's usually more than one way to answer any particular question, right? So it's, again, the quantitative, which speaks to the quantity, and the qualitative, which is more definable and speaks to the quality. of service. Process-based evaluations are used to understand how a program works and it delivers its results, right? So they assess the activities that are being implemented and the materials that are used. That's evaluating the process. Outcome-based evaluations are used to measure any changes immediately after the program has been implemented, and they hopefully establish that these changes have occurred in response to the intervention that you are evaluating. And your impact-based evaluation, again, is, I think, the most complicated and difficult to carry out, because the impact-based evaluations examine the long-term effects of an intervention on participants. So it's a lot to absorb, definitely, in understanding what evaluation is and what its purpose is, but in the importance of understanding the different types of evaluation, I think that's where you will have more value in determining who will do your evaluation for you and what tools you will use to conduct the evaluation. So again, the different types of evaluation are process-based, outcome-based, and impact-based, right? And again, in determining whether there's some quantitative data and qualitative data that needs to be extrapolated, it's very important to understand that. And understanding that, again, the purpose for your evaluation of your programming is that it's fulfilling and the program outcomes and impact that you originally had stated and wanted to achieve. So without getting off on a tangent, that's it for today's coffee break. So make sure that you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this video. So get back to work or whatever it is that you were doing. And we'll see you at the next coffee break. Lates.